Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, we have Cory Nott. He is a visionary business coach, co-owner with his wife of Take Wing Coaching. He works with business owners, and they coach and consult and educate in this process. He's been consulting to businesses and on operations and technology. He's been doing that for 25 years, but he's added coaching to his practice in 2013. In addition, as if that's not enough, he's an internationally recognized business relationship expert and certified NLP master practitioner. His key to success is having a vision that's greater than any obstacle. Cory, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Frank. Glad to be here.
That's quite a mouthful, quite a lot of things that you've done. You kind of want to take us through the journey as to how you got to this point?
Yeah, I can tell you about it. I think one of the things to focus on is really how I became a coach. Is really a big part of my journey, especially, of course, over the last 8 years, and really more about the last 15 years. When I was growing up, I was alone a lot. My parents were working, going to school, they were divorced, and then we moved around quite a bit. I didn't make friends very easily, so I didn't have a lot of relationships. I probably know a couple people from school thanks to Facebook, but I don't have any really relationships with those people. And as I got a little older, I actually fell in with a pretty bad crowd when I got into high school. I was always very independent, so I didn't really give into much control. I guess that's why I also run a business. But I fell into a bad crowd, and I wound up leaving school early. I wound up getting married early. I had a really, really rough 20s in many ways. And coming out of that, I was pretty much at a very, very low point by the mid 90s. I was actually at one point homeless for a little while, and just, saw that I needed to clean things up and get better. But I still had a tendency to run into, I would say, kind of that bad crowd, and
Right.
They were a little better, along the way. And then finally, I launched my business. I said, one of the things I always wanted to do was I wanted to run my own business. I don't want a boss. One thing I had going for me is I was really good with computers. And so I launched a business around working with small businesses on their computers. And it was there I started to need to network. And, so you start getting calls, as soon as you launch a business, you start getting calls from the chamber, and they're like, come to this networking mixer. And then somebody else said, hey, come to this other event where we pass referrals to each other. And I was pretty skeptical. I'm not really a networker. Like I said, I tended to do things alone and be alone. But I said, all right, I'll give it a try. I was in the middle of a recession, and there was some need to, look at how I was going to keep bringing in business along the way. So I went. And it was amazing to start meeting people like yourself who are inspiring, rather than running away from struggles and turning to, other substances when, things got tough. You're talking about people who overcome their obstacles and, work hard. And that's something I always had was a work ethic. And so suddenly meeting these great people, I said, okay, I want to surround myself with these people. How do I get to know them? And so I did. I joined the BNI group at the time, and started making good friends. I actually met my wife in BNI at that time.
Oh, there you go. That's a great referral.
Yeah, it was a great referral. And so I think there's always that saying, when you surround yourself with good people, then that's how you become good people, right? You become the best of those, not the best of, but you become like the people that you surround yourself with. And so that really made a difference impact on me. And along the way, I said, okay, I want to get better. I want to exert more leadership. So I stepped into a leadership role, and then I stepped up to a higher leadership role as a director with BNI. Kind of managed to get my way into that. And that's when I started getting mentors, which is something I had never had in my life. And one of them said to me, she said, she was very successful. She owned a large region of BNI. And, I was always very admiring of how they did things and, the way they lived their lives. And she said, if somebody has what you want, do what they do. And what she does is she invests 10% of all her income, all her revenues, everything they get, she puts back into personal development. So I said, okay, and she said, and if you want to do that, this is who I recommend talking to. So I started doing that. And that completely changed my life. I went from being kind of that, I'm still definitely an individualist, but kind of feeling like I'm out of the crowd, to how I can actually work within the crowd, to feel comfortable around people, to build strong relationships. I joined with a company called Referral Institute, which was all about building relationships.
Right.
And managed to really get my business going to something very strong. It's still going this day because of those relationships. And I realized along the way that it wasn't just computers I wanted to work on. I actually wanted to work with people. And so I trained in personal development as a coach, kind of on a life coaching with groups type thing. And then I was recruited by the owners of the Referral Institute to be a coach with them and own a region. And that's how I got started as a business coach, working on relationships. So they trained me on how to build relationships. And I always said, it was because I've struggled so much to build relationships, I felt like I kind of understand how other people struggle with that. There's so many unanswered questions that it's about communication, clearly. And when you learn how to communicate, you can help other people do the same thing, and to create strategies for actually creating successful business around referrals and marketing and so on. So that was my journey into coaching.
Wow. This is, I guess, a total random question, but have you ever run into some of those people that you were in trouble with? I mean, they would just be blown away.
Surprisingly, not many. When I got divorced, my ex-wife took most of them with her.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. And there's one that I ran into. It was interesting. I ran into him on Facebook, and he was always a good guy, but not really one to go anywhere. And it was interesting because I think he actually wound up inheriting quite a lot of money. But when I talked to him and I reached out to him on Facebook, because he was a good friend, he's like, I don't even remember you. I did so many drugs, I completely forgot everybody from that time. But,
wow.
But he seems to be doing all right, and I'm glad to see that he has a much more stable life than he had back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, everybody else is gone,
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I know you well. We've talked a couple times, and we are on online networking things. I'm floored by the story.
Yeah, most people kind of see me as straight-laced and all that. I had a wild life in my 20s.
Yeah. I mean, it's if I had a lineup of people that I know that we know, and somebody gave this backstory, you wouldn't be the one. You would not be the one.
No, and but there's a lot of it, that goes on that there's a lot that goes on in the head, like, okay, what did I do, and how do I, show myself as being more successful, and how do I, make right on that time that I lost.
Right.
Yeah, but I learned a lot too. I was fortunate to have some good aspects to my career at that time too. I was actually good at getting good jobs.
Right.
Wasn't so great at keeping them, but I was good at getting them. And again, keeping good jobs, is all about relationships. And since I struggled with relationships, I would get in and then I wouldn't know where to go.
Can you remember that moment when you realized that, okay, wait a minute, it's relationships? Because I think a lot of people, we just roll through life and it is relationships, but we don't necessarily know,
I don't know. My father was always like, you got to go to college, you got to get a sheepskin, to get a job. And that was never really an issue for me. What I realized is a good, what I've seen, and I probably started seeing this as when I really started training and through BNI and through leadership and so on, is that places like colleges and so on are actually great places to build your network. Right, because those are people who are planning to do something with their lives.
Yeah.
When you get to know them, you become friends with them, and when they want to go do something, they bring those people they know along with them. So that's really where I started to realize that it's all about relationships and mentorship. Actually it was a keynote speech at a convention was Keith Ferrazzi on, he was doing Who's Got Your Back? And it was all about mentorship. And he tells a really good story because he came from a very hard background, but his parents sacrificed a great deal to put him into an exclusive private school where he got quite a bit of mentoring and learned that, everything he could do in life was by having good mentors. And so that's all networking as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all those relationships. Yeah.
Well, your story is kind of a tale of two cities, if you will. I mean, you showing what bad influences, bad relationships can do and what good relationships can do. Fortunately, they're in the right order. I wouldn't be talking to you if it was the other order, probably.
I still have to sometimes resist those. Sometimes people come around who are a little bit edgy, and it's easy for me to kind of fall in and be friends with those people and then realize, wait a minute, this isn't somebody who's going to get me where I want to go. And, I can like them, but I'll have to keep them kind of at arm's length. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Does Gail help with that? I mean,
Gail's wonderful. Yeah.
Okay.
She doesn't criticize anybody, but we always kind of steer towards the best thing. Let's move up. We believe in networking up. So any organization we go into, we look to be leaders, and that always just means elevating our game as well.
Right.
And
I think a powerful question for spouses, wives in our situations is, really? That's the question, right? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
She doesn't even say it, it's just implied.
Yeah. Really? That's kind of a polite no. You better not. When you were growing up, what did you want to be? I mean, obviously coaching wasn't even a thing.
No, I wanted to be a business owner. It didn't matter what I did. I just wanted to create things and sell them or I wasn't even sure what that really meant, but I remember I always was looking for things to do, to not just so much to make money, but to do things that could make money, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
And then I would make things, and whenever I had an opportunity to sell something door to door, I was never really good at knocking on doors and the sales part, but I really enjoyed the idea of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's something limitless to it.
Right. It's your own thing.
Yeah. I remember taking my first and only job and getting that paycheck and saying, well, okay, how can I increase this? Right. Well, you really can't. Gotta wait till next year. I don't want to wait till next year.
Well, even then, when I worked in fast food, I was a manager within 3 weeks. I was just like, I was always a really hard worker.
Right.
But the danger of fast food is the crowd you run into. There's and even sometimes the bosses aren't so great either. It could be.
Was that your first job then in fast food?
First, kind of real job. I had paper routes, and I did a short stint with a computer company that crashed in 1987. If anybody remembers that big crash of 87, but I won't get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
October of 87. It's Black Monday. Yeah.
Right.
I was, I think I was at an interview in East Lansing, Michigan. I was just finishing up law school. I was in my last year of law school, and everybody was scurrying around wondering about their 401ks. And here I am like, who do I interview with next? Nobody wanted to talk with me. I didn't get the job. I don't think the job was there by the end of the day, to be perfectly honest. Charitable causes or charities you have a passion towards?
Well, I am part of Rotary, so
okay.
I enjoy getting involved with what they do. It's been a little struggle in the last year. I just joined Rotary just before the pandemic hit, and so that all went online, and I haven't felt as connected as I'd like to be. But I'm starting to look at some e-Rotaries to get involved with. I'd say for the last 15 years, a lot of my devotion has just been to helping other business owners. I do a lot of leadership. I give a lot of time away to mentoring, and my wife and I love animals. And one of the things I love are parrots. So I also do some causes with that. I think we just are attracted to helping people in whatever way we can. And so when there's like an event, we go to that buy tickets for a gala or whatever and enjoy that. Yeah, but I haven't picked up anything super specific.
Yeah. What do you do with your downtime? You and I were talking before we hit record. I guess it sounds you like a lot of hands-on sorts of things. Well, I'll let you answer.
Well, I'm a bit of a video gamer. I will admit to that.
Okay.
I spend a little more time behind the computer than I should, but we managed to land a property a couple of years ago. We don't actually own it yet. It was my cousin's property, and he needed somebody to manage it. And it's out here in the woods. And when he passed, went into the trust, and we're kind of negotiating purchasing it. But we realized this is a great place to have a homestead. Our original intent, actually, my wife and I had planned to travel full time around the country. So we had actually landed on this property, bought a motorhome, moved into that, and then she got pregnant, and we wound up having a daughter come along. And that wouldn't have put a restriction on the travel idea, except that the grandparents are like, well, you can do whatever you want, but you're leaving our grandchild with us.
Right.
Right. It's a very, they don't like to even go a week without seeing her. So we decided to kind of stick around. We did do some travel in the motorhome, went through around the Western states. And then we will do that again, probably in a few years when the grandchild is a little older and they don't feel as needy about it. Or maybe they come along. I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Right.
But yeah, so that was the original plan. And when you're doing that, there's not a whole lot of downtime because you're just constantly on the move and seeing things and, enjoying whatever's new in the area. But then we set up so we decided we'd build a homestead out here. So we're building vegetable gardens. I've got chickens, plan to put in goats. Property needs quite a bit of cleanup in terms of just, fixing things up and getting it was rehabilitated to a certain extent, and now it just needs more. It's got a lot of overgrown trees and everything else. So it keeps me busy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's been nice during the pandemic to have a way to actually get a fair amount of exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a worthwhile pursuit. And like you said, it is exercise. You feel it.
Oh yeah.
I guess let's switch gears. Let's talk about Take Wing coaching and talk about your business and what it's about, who you're looking for, how people can help you, how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, I was working with Ascentive for a while as a coach, and when we decided we wanted to travel, we realized that was a kind of a region specific type of business, and you understand how that works.
Yep.
And so if we're going to travel full time, we're going to have our own coaching company, and we'd actually have to go online because we don't know where we're going to be, and we might even be off the grid sometimes. So if we can organize our coaching program around, those times that we know we'll actually have good internet, we do that. So we actually began launching Take Wing coaching. We came up with the name, one, because we like, parrots and birds and so on. And partly just because that is kind of just, it suggests about getting up into the air and going somewhere. Right.
Right.
And we came up with a platform called Lift, which is our initiative for the past couple of years. And that's a community, an online community. We're still trying to figure out exactly what it means, because as we bring people in and they engage, we get to see how it all works out. And what we're finding is it's really a online networking community. And the networking is really around support. It's not so much for referrals or for building business. It's more about people helping each other with ideas, inspiration, building relationships that I think are more lasting, because they're not about, what are you going to give me, but more of who can I just, talk with and get some advice and maybe some mentoring and a little bit of masterminding and some accountability. We also offer workshops. We do some group coaching, and we roll it all up into a community package, a membership package that is very affordable for most business owners. And we're finding most of our people they're solo business owners who coach, they consult, they educate, and usually to other business owners. And so they're really experts in what they do, and where they struggle is on the marketing and sales, and sometimes just getting the work done.
Yeah.
They have big ideas, and what I've learned is sometimes those big ideas, they run away from us. Right? You start working on it and you're starting to feel a little more lost in the weeds. So the idea behind it is they can come in and talk with others and pull themselves out of those weeds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of an age-old problem. It certainly applies to coaches and consultants. But even the plumber, let's pick on plumbers, who decide, I'm sick of working for somebody. I want to do my own thing. And, I've got tools I picked up tools along the way, and they're all ready. And then they're just twiddling their thumbs because the phone's not ringing. And
the plumbers out here, they have it pretty easy. Yeah.
Okay.
Their struggle is charging enough. I mean, there's a lot of struggles with plumbers, but this is a busy area for plumbers. We can't even get them into our networking groups. But I get what you're saying. I think a lot of times people expect, well, if I put hang out a shingle, people will come.
Right.
And it clearly isn't the most effective way. And I do believe strongly in the referral marketing. And even that, though, you have to know what you're doing. And sometimes these programs that people are marketing, they're new ideas. They can be difficult to express.
Right.
This is exactly what it's for, who it's for, and and how to get them enrolled. And our referral marketing partners, if they're not really clear on that, it makes it hard for them to refer. So
no, absolutely. Yeah. I have learned in the last year that saying coach is akin to saying ice cream.
Right.
Because there's so many different flavors, and same thing with coaching. And the revelation came when a coach told me, I would love to have a networking group of all coaches. I'm like, really? Why would you want to do that? That makes no sense. And he says, no, we all kind of do different things. And, there's the time management coach who doesn't really help with the sales end of it. And there's just lots of different types. They could just be passing people from one to the next.
And that's very much like what we're building now is I would say it's a networking for coaches, but it isn't. I know some of them are passing referrals. We want them to feel like whatever it is they're working on, they'll find some room for that in the community. And we do encourage them also to have one-to-one coaches and so on. People who can really help them laser focus.
Sure. Sure. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me, that's actually a good question. Well, there's always my phone number, but I like my email. It's Cory@CoryNott.com.
Okay.
Very responsive to email. But I'm happy with, sharing my phone number, our website, our Facebook page.
Well, I'll definitely get the website in the show notes.
It's not hard to get a hold of me.
Yeah. I'm like you. Email is best. But I'm finding anymore that there's 16 different ways that people want to communicate. Some people are insistent on Facebook Messenger, some it's through LinkedIn, and I don't have a problem with either of those or texting. The problem is if you get a fair amount of communication through those, they tend to get lost. They start to push down. Yeah. And none of those platforms, Facebook and LinkedIn or text, allows you to flag something. I don't know. It's cumbersome. So
it is. Yeah. I've had a few people contacting me through LinkedIn lately, and I do get back to them, but it can sometimes it gets overloaded, right? With all the other messages that come through, and you just don't see it.
Yeah.
The LinkedIn's getting better about that. I've noticed that some of those things are just popping up on my screen every time now. Like, you haven't answered this.
Yeah. That's good. Well, I appreciate your time today. This was very enlightening for me. Very, very enlightening. So I'm impressed. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
To wrap things up, remember, we're looking for some enterprising business types to join our team as franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections. Our franchisees work with entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals in their area to help them become more successful through networking and the exchange of quality business referrals in a structured weekly morning meeting. This is a unique franchise opportunity, you see, because these meetings are in the morning. A successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity onto what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, these franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, They're attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. The wonderful thing is that not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections model, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business as well. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are that someone. Whatever the case, to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one we provide at the end of this program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.